For countless generations, the Galactic Empire had reigned supreme over the known reaches of space. Its domain spanned countless star systems, each one a jewel in the crown of this colossal interstellar power. At the heart of the empire sat the imperial capital, a glistening metropolis that served as the seat of absolute authority. The empire's origins could be traced back thousands of years, to a time when humans had first ventured beyond their home planet and encountered the vast wonders of the cosmos. Through a combination of technological innovation, ruthless expansion, and skilled diplomacy, the fledgling human civilization had gradually brought more and more star systems under its control. Over the centuries, the empire's reach had grown ever wider, assimilating alien cultures and adding their knowledge and resources to the imperial machine. Today, the Galactic Empire stood tall as the unrivaled hegemon of the explored galaxy. Its mighty fleets of vast capital ships and lightning-fast corvettes patrolled the hyperlanes, enforcing the Emperor's will across countless worlds. The Imperial Armada possessed weaponry and shielding technology that was the envy of all other spacefaring civilizations. No force in the known universe could hope to challenge the Empire's military supremacy. At the head of this colossal empire sat the imperial throne, occupied by a dynasty that had ruled for generations. The current emperor, a shrewd and calculating individual, maintained an iron grip on power through a combination of political maneuvering and open displays of force. Beneath him, a vast bureaucracy of imperial administrators, governors, and planetary overseers ensured that the empire's subjects remained obedient and productive. For the citizens of the empire, life was one of relative stability and prosperity, so long as they stayed loyal to the imperial cause. The imperial war machine demanded constant resources and manpower, and the populace was expected to provide both without question. Those who dared to voice dissent or resist imperial rule were swiftly crushed, their homeworlds reduced to ashes by the fearsome imperial navy. The ruling elite of the empire, safe in their opulent palaces and private estates, took this status quo for granted. They had grown complacent, confident in the belief that no power in the galaxy could ever hope to challenge the might of the Galactic Empire. Their arrogance and short-sightedness blinded them to the stirrings of change that were about to rock the very foundations of their interstellar domain. For beyond the fringes of the Empire's reach, a new power was rising, one that would soon shake the galaxy to its core. For years, whispers had circulated through the shadowy corridors of Imperial intelligence agencies and the officers' mess halls of the Imperial Armada. Tales of strange, unidentified spacecraft sighted on the furthest reaches of the Empire's frontier had slowly filtered their way up the chain of command, met with a mix of concern and dismissal from the Imperial leadership. The first reports had come from remote outposts and lonely orbital stations, manned by crews of seasoned spacers and veteran explorers. They spoke of massive, crescent-shaped vessels that moved with a grace and speed that defied the Empire's most advanced starships. These mysterious craft would appear seemingly out of nowhere, conduct some unknown task, and then vanish back into the void, leaving only bewildered witnesses in their wake. As the sightings continued to mount, the Imperial Admiralty was forced to take notice. Dispatching fast response corvettes and heavy cruisers to investigate, they hoped to uncover the source of these strange encounters and put an end to the growing rumors. But time and again, the Imperial patrols would return empty-handed, their crews shaken by tales of technological marvels that outclassed anything in the Emperor's arsenal. The senior officers of the Imperial Armada were perplexed. How could there be civilizations beyond the Empire's borders that possessed such advanced spacefaring capabilities? It was an unsettling thought, one that flew in the face of the Imperial dogma that humanity, under the guiding hand of the Emperor, reigned supreme across the galaxy. Whispers soon gave way to demands for action. Planetary governors and sector commanders, fearful of the unknown threat on their doorstep, pressed the Imperial High Command to dispatch greater forces to the frontier. They called for the construction of new military outposts, the deployment of additional fighter squadrons, and the establishment of permanent patrols to guard against these mysterious interlopers. But the imperial bureaucracy, with its calcified hierarchy and sluggish decision-making processes, moved at a glacial pace. Requests for increased military presence were often met with denials or months-long delays, as the imperial officials debated the merits and risks of such proposals. After all, the empire's resources were already stretched thin, engaged in countless pacification campaigns and border skirmishes across its vast dominion. The dissenting voices grew louder, however, as more and more disturbing reports filtered in from the frontier. Tales emerged of entire imperial garrison stations going dark, with no trace of their crew or the ships that had once guarded them. Outpost commanders spoke of massive, unidentified vessels that could lay waste to the Empire's proudest battleships with terrifying ease. Still, the imperial leadership remained dismissive. They scoffed at the wild tales of their subordinates, attributing the losses to equipment malfunctions, navigational errors, or the occasional rogue pirate band. The notion that there existed civilizations beyond the Empire's reach that could pose a genuine threat to the imperial war machine was simply too unthinkable to entertain. Little did the complacent rulers of the Galactic Empire realize that the whispers of a new threat were about to become a deafening roar, one that would shake the foundations of their interstellar dominion to its core. Amid the growing unease and speculation within the Galactic Empire, the Imperial High Command reluctantly decided that action could no longer be delayed. A large task force, composed of the Empire's most formidable warships, was assembled and dispatched to the distant frontier where the strange sightings had been reported. Leading the expedition was Admiral Tagus, a seasoned veteran of countless Imperial campaigns. Though he had heard the unsettling rumors, the grizzled old commander dismissed them as little more than superstitious nonsense. In his mind, any civilization that dared to challenge the might of the Galactic Empire would be swiftly crushed under the weight of the Imperial Armada's firepower. As the Imperial Task Force made its way through the vast, empty stretches of hyperspace, the crews aboard the massive dreadnoughts and cruisers grew increasingly on edge. Stories of lost outposts and mysteriously vanished patrols had spread like wildfire, fueling wild speculation and creeping dread among the rank and file. But the officers, taking their cue from the stoic Admiral Tagus, maintained a facade of unwavering confidence. It was not until the task force emerged from the hyperlane and into the remote system that the true nature of the threat became clear. Arrayed before them, filling the void between the distant stars, lay an immense fleet, one unlike anything the seasoned Imperial crews had ever encountered. The alien vessels were unlike any the Empire had seen before. Their hulls gleamed with an unfamiliar alloy, their silhouettes flowing with a grace and elegance that defied the boxy, utilitarian design of Imperial warships. And as the Imperial fleet drew closer, the crew members felt a chill run down their spines at the sheer scale of the alien armada. "By the Emperor," Admiral Tagus muttered, his eyes widening as he gazed upon the vast host of ships. "Hail them at once. Demand they identify themselves and state their purpose." But as the Imperial corvettes moved to establish communication, a barrage of energy weapons erupted from the alien fleet. Brilliant bolts of plasma and particle beams lanced out, striking the leading Imperial vessels with devastating force. Alarms blared, hull armor crumpled, and once mighty warships were reduced to drifting, lifeless hulks in the span of mere heartbeats. Caught off guard by the sudden and overwhelming attack, the Imperial Task Force scrambled to respond. Their own heavy guns thundered to life, pounding away at the mysterious alien ships. But to the horror of the Imperial crews, their weapons seemed to have little effect. The alien vessels shrugged off the bombardment, their advanced shielding systems deflecting the Imperial barrage with ease. In the chaos of the battle, Admiral Tagus tried desperately to rally his forces and mount a coordinated counterattack. But the enemy had seized the initiative, pressing their assault with ruthless efficiency. Wave after wave of alien fighters and interceptors swarmed the Imperial capital ships, their nimble forms darting between the lumbering dreadnoughts to deliver devastating torpedo strikes. Within the span of barely an hour, the once mighty Imperial task force had been reduced to a shattered, disorganized rout. Crippled warships drifted helplessly as their crews abandoned ship, fleeing in terror-stricken escape pods. The few vessels that managed to disengage and limp back into hyperspace carried with them a single horrifying realization. The Galactic Empire had met its match, and the consequences of this defeat would shake the foundations of their interstellar dominion to its very core. The battered remnants of the Imperial task force limped back to the nearest Loyalist system, their crews shaken and demoralized. Word of the crushing defeat soon spread through the ranks of the Imperial Armada, sparking panic and disbelief among the officers and enlisted men alike. Admiral Tagus, his once proud flagship reduced to a drifting, smoking ruin, stood before the Imperial High Command, his weathered face etched with a mix of shame and fear. As he recounted the events of the disastrous encounter, the seasoned commander's voice wavered, the usually stoic veteran visibly rattled by what he had witnessed. "They were unlike anything we've ever faced, my lords," Tagus reported, his hands trembling slightly. Their ships moved with a speed and grace that defied all known physics. Their weapons tore through our shields and armor like they were nothing. We were outmatched in every conceivable way. The Imperial admirals and governors listened in stunned silence, their confidence in the Empire's military supremacy shaken to the core. How could this be possible? How could there exist civilizations beyond the Imperium's borders that possessed technology so advanced that it rendered the full might of the Imperial Armada obsolete? Impossible, one of the high-ranking officials finally uttered, his brow furrowed in a mix of denial and growing concern. The reports of our scouts and explorers must have been exaggerated. There can be no force in this galaxy that can stand against the combined might of the Emperor's fleets. But as more survivors from the task force arrived, the grim details of the encounter only served to corroborate Tagus' account. Eyewitness after eyewitness described the alien vessels' effortless maneuverability, their devastating energy weapons, and the utter helplessness of the Imperial forces in the face of this technological onslaught. Slowly, the reality of the situation began to dawn on the Imperial leadership. They had encountered a new, previously unknown power, one that possessed capabilities that far surpassed anything the Galactic Empire had ever seen, and the implications of this discovery were nothing short of staggering. Panic began to spread through the higher echelons of the Imperial government. Urgent communiques were dispatched to every corner of the Imperium, calling for increased security, heightened border patrols, and the immediate diversion of resources to shore up the Empire's defenses. The hoarded technological secrets of the Imperial war machine were to be shared with all loyal member worlds in a desperate bid to counter this newfound threat. But even as the Empire marshaled its forces, a growing sense of dread permeated the upper ranks of the leadership. They had grown complacent, lulled into a false sense of security by the Imperium's centuries-long dominance. The idea that there could exist civilizations beyond their control, with the power to challenge the might of the Emperor's legions, was a terrifying prospect. And the question that hung heavy in the air was this: if the Galactic Empire could be so thoroughly humbled by this mysterious new power, what other horrors might lurk in the uncharted reaches of the galaxy? The news of the Imperial Task Force's devastating defeat at the hands of the mysterious alien vessels spread like wildfire through the Galactic Empire. Panic gripped the ruling elite, their confidence in the Imperium's military might shattered by the overwhelming display of technological superiority. In the Imperial Palace, the Emperor himself convened an emergency council, summoning his most trusted advisors and military commanders to attend. The aged sovereign, his brow furrowed with growing concern, listened intently as the survivors of the frontier encounter relayed the grim details of their harrowing defeat. "This cannot be," the Emperor declared, his voice laced with a rare hint of uncertainty. "Our fleets should have been more than a match for any force in the known galaxy. How is it that these strangers possess such advanced capabilities?" The Imperial ministers exchanged uneasy glances, well aware that questioning the Emperor's words was a perilous gambit. Yet the gravity of the situation demanded they speak their minds, even in the face of the sovereign's wrath. "My lord, it is clear that we have underestimated the technological prowess of this new civilization," one of the advisors ventured cautiously. "Their ships, their weapons, they defy all logic and reason. We must act quickly to understand their secrets and devise countermeasures, lest they pose an existential threat to the Imperium." The Emperor's piercing gaze swept across the room, silencing the murmurs of agreement that had risen from the other officials. "Existential threat," he echoed, his voice dripping with disdain. "The might of the Galactic Empire has stood unchallenged for millennia. I will not allow some upstart aliens to jeopardize our rightful dominion over the stars." Turning to the Imperial Armada's highest-ranking officers, the Emperor issued a series of sweeping directives. Every available resource was to be poured into a vast military expansion, with production of new warships, weapons, and defensive technologies to be prioritized above all else. The borders of the Imperium were to be fortified, with additional garrisons and patrol fleets deployed to guard against any further incursions. "We will meet this challenge head-on," the Emperor declared, his eyes narrowing with grim determination. "No force in the galaxy shall dare to defy the will of the Galactic Empire. We will uncover the secrets of our new adversaries, and we will use that knowledge to crush them beneath the weight of our might." Across the far-flung worlds of the Imperium, the Emperor's orders were met with a mixture of apprehension and patriotic fervor. Planetary governors hastened to divert resources and manpower to the swelling Imperial war machine, while the Imperial propaganda machine worked tirelessly to stoke the fires of xenophobic fervor among the populace. Yet amid the frenzied preparations, a growing sense of unease pervaded the upper echelons of the Imperium's leadership. For the first time in centuries, the mighty Galactic Empire found itself facing the prospect of a true peer adversary, one whose technological superiority threatened to upset the delicate balance of power that had defined the galaxy for generations. The race was on, and the stakes had never been higher. The future of the Imperium hung in the balance, and failure was simply not an option. As the Galactic Empire poured resources into a feverish military buildup, the Imperial High Command remained on high alert, watching the distant frontier with growing trepidation. Yet even as the fortifications were erected and the new warships rolled off the production lines, a sense of unease persisted among the Empire's leadership. For they knew, deep down, that no matter how much they prepared, they could not hope to match the technological superiority of the mysterious alien civilization that had so thoroughly humbled the might of the Imperial Armada. It was against this backdrop of mounting tension and uncertainty that the Imperium's first formal contact with the aliens finally occurred. A single, massive vessel, unlike anything the Empire had encountered before, emerged from the void, its approach heralded by a series of coded transmissions that the Imperial communication officers struggled to decipher. When the alien ship at last made contact, the images that flickered to life on the command deck's view screens caused a collective gasp to ripple through the assembled Imperial officers. The being that stared back at them was unmistakably humanoid, bearing a striking resemblance to the citizens of the Galactic Empire, yet with distinct differences in their features and bearing. "Greetings, representatives of the Galactic Empire." The alien's voice boomed forth, its tone firm and unwavering. "I am Anara, an emissary of the human collective. We have been observing your activities in this region of space, and we are concerned by what we have witnessed." The Imperial admirals and governors exchanged uneasy glances, their hands hovering over the emergency alert buttons that would summon the full might of the Imperial Armada. Yet something in the aliens' demeanor gave them pause, a sense of power and confidence that gave them pause. "Concerned," one of the officers finally managed to reply, his voice laced with a thin veneer of bravado. "The Galactic Empire has maintained peace and stability across the known galaxy for millennia. We have no need for the intervention of outsiders." Anara's expression remained impassive, their piercing gaze sweeping across the assembled Imperial command. "That may be so," they conceded, But your actions on the frontier have demonstrated the grave limitations of your technological capabilities. You are ill-prepared to defend yourselves, let alone your subjects, against the threats that lurk beyond your borders." The officer's face flushed with indignation, but before he could retort, Anera raised a hand, silencing him with a subtle gesture. "Therefore, the human collective has decided to offer its assistance, but in return, we require certain concessions from the Galactic Empire." The Imperial leadership bristled at the audacity of the aliens' demands, their pride and sense of entitlement wounded by the notion of submitting to the whims of this newfound power. Yet, as they contemplated the devastating defeat of their task force, they knew that they had little choice but to listen. "What concessions do you require?" the lead admiral asked, his jaw set in a hard line. Anera's gaze hardened, their voice taking on a stern, uncompromising tone. "First, the human collective requires unrestricted access to the strategic resources and industrial centers located within the Outer Rim territories. These will be used to bolster our own defenses against the threats that loom on the horizon." The Imperial officers erupted in outraged murmurs, but Anera raised their hand once more, silencing them. "Secondly, the Galactic Empire will cede control of several key hyperspace routes and navigational beacons to the human collective. This will ensure the free and unimpeded movement of our vessels throughout the galaxy." "You cannot be serious," one of the governors exclaimed, his face twisted in a mask of fury. "To surrender such vital assets would be to undermine the very foundation of the Imperium's power." Anera's expression remained impassive, unflinching in the face of the Imperial outrage. "I assure you, we are quite serious. These terms are non-negotiable. Failure to comply will result in consequences that the Galactic Empire is ill-equipped to withstand." The pressure in the command deck was palpable as the Imperial leadership grappled with the weight of Anera's demands. To accept would be to surrender the Imperium's hard-won dominance over the galaxy, to cede power and influence to this newfound alien civilization. Yet the alternative, defiance in the face of such overwhelming technological superiority, promised only ruin and destruction. Faced with an impossible choice, the Imperium's rulers knew that they had no choice but to bend to the will of the humans. For the first time in centuries, the mighty Galactic Empire found itself forced to submit to the demands of an outside power. A bitter pill to swallow, but one that the survival of their civilization demanded they accept. Seething with resentment and a wounded sense of pride, the Imperial leadership reluctantly accepted the humans' non-negotiable demands. With gritted teeth and heavy hearts, they set about dismantling the Imperium's control over the strategic resources and hyperspace routes that the aliens had claimed as their own. Yet even as the Empire complied with the humiliating terms, a secret plan was being hatched within the shadowy halls of the Imperial Palace. The Emperor himself, his brow furrowed with a mix of determination and barely concealed rage, had summoned his most trusted military commanders to devise a bold counterstroke against the human upstarts. "We cannot allow this affront to our sovereignty to stand," the aged sovereign growled, his fist slamming against the ornate table that dominated the war room. "The might of the Galactic Empire has been diminished, our very foundations shaken by the whims of these alien usurpers. We must strike back, and strike back hard, before they can solidify their hold over our domain." The Imperial admirals and generals exchanged uneasy glances, well aware of the risks that such an endeavor would entail. The reports from the frontier had painted a grim picture of the humans' technological superiority, and the thought of once again engaging their formidable forces in open battle filled them with a sense of dread. "My lord, the human ships outclass our own in every conceivable way," one of the more cautious officers ventured. "To defy them openly would be to invite utter annihilation upon our fleets. Surely there must be a more prudent course of action." But the Emperor's gaze was unwavering, his eyes narrowed with a steely determination. "Prudence is for the weak-willed, Admiral. The Galactic Empire has stood as the preeminent power in this galaxy for millennia, and I will not allow some upstart aliens to usurp our rightful place. We will strike them where they least expect it, and we will do so with such overwhelming force that they will be cowed into submission. Rallying his most loyal commanders, the Emperor laid out his audacious plan. A vast armada, drawn from the furthest reaches of the Imperium, would be assembled in total secrecy, its muster shielded from the prying eyes of the human intelligence network. This strike force would then launch a devastating surprise attack, cutting the heart out of the human domains before they could react. With one decisive blow, we will reclaim our lost territories and send a clear message to these interlopers, the Emperor declared, a cruel smile tugging at the corners of his lips. The Galactic Empire does not bow to the demands of any foreign power. We are the masters of our domain, and we will prove it with the blood of our enemies. As the Imperial war machine lurched into action, a web of deception and misdirection was woven to conceal the true extent of the Imperium's preparations. Fleets were diverted, supply lines were rerouted, and entire sectors were put on high alert, all in a bid to mask the gathering storm that was about to be unleashed upon the unsuspecting human civilization. Yet, unbeknownst to the Imperial leadership, the humans' vaunted intelligence network had already caught wind of the Imperium's clandestine machinations. Quietly, the human emissaries communicated the troubling news to their superiors, urging them to make ready for the inevitable onslaught. The stage was set for a final, decisive clash, one that would determine the fate of not just the Galactic Empire, but the entire known galaxy. The vast Imperial Armada, its ships bristling with lethal weaponry, and its crews filled with a determination born of wounded pride, emerged from hyperspace like a gathering storm. The humans, their intelligence network having forewarned them of the Imperium's secret attack, stood ready to meet the onslaught, their own fleets arrayed in defensive formations across the strategic systems and hyperspace routes. For a long, tense moment, the two colossal forces faced off, the silence broken only by the crackle of energy readings and the distant hum of readied engines. Then, with a flash of brilliant light, the battle was joined. The Imperial ships unleashed a torrent of fire, their heavy plasma cannons and particle beams carving deep into the human defenses. But to the shock and dismay of the Imperium's commanders, the alien vessels weathered the bombardment with ease, their advanced shielding systems deflecting the attacks with casual grace. In turn, the human fleets launched a devastating counterattack, their sleek, maneuverable craft darting between the lumbering Imperial warships to deliver precision strikes with devastating effect. Blazing energy beams lanced out, slicing through armor and tearing massive gashes in the hulls of the Imperium's proudest dreadnoughts. The battle raged on, the two sides trading blows in a titanic struggle that shook the very fabric of the galaxy. Ships exploded, debris fields drifted through the void, and the once proud Imperial Armada found itself in a desperate struggle for survival. Aboard the flagship of the Imperial Strike Force, Admiral Tagus watched the unfolding carnage with a growing sense of dread. His most seasoned commanders had fallen, their vessels reduced to burning husks in the face of the human onslaught. And try as he might, the grizzled old officer could find no weakness, no vulnerability that he and his crews could exploit. By the Emperor, Tagus muttered, his weathered face etched with a mix of fear and awe. They're unstoppable. As the battle reached its crescendo, the humans unveiled their most devastating weapon yet, a barrage of massive, hypervelocity projectiles that lanced out with unerring precision, tearing through the Imperial fleet's defenses and reducing entire squadrons to smoldering debris. The shattered remnants of the Imperium's armada flowed in disarray, their proud captains finally acknowledging the bitter truth. The Galactic Empire had met its match, and its vaunted military might had been found wanting. In the aftermath of the decisive human victory, the ruling elite of the Imperium were forced to confront a harsh reality. Their 3-millennia reign of unchallenged dominance had come to an end, toppled by the rise of a new technologically superior power. The balance of power in the galaxy had been irrevocably shattered, and the Imperium's grip on its subject worlds began to loosen as word of their humiliation spread. Faced with the choice of continuing a hopeless struggle or submitting to the humans' terms, The Imperial leadership knew that they had no other option but to concede defeat. A delegation was hastily assembled, led by the Emperor himself, to travel to the human homeworlds and sue for peace. As the Imperial emissaries made their way through the alien domains, they were struck by the sheer scale and sophistication of the human civilization. Vast shipyards, gleaming cities, and bustling trade hubs bore witness to a level of technological advancement that the Imperium could scarcely comprehend. And at the heart of it all stood the human leadership, their confidence and resolve unshaken by the Imperium's previous threats. In the end, the terms of the peace accord were harsh but inescapable. The Galactic Empire was forced to relinquish control over key strategic systems and resources, ceding them to the burgeoning human collective. Its military forces were to be scaled back, its once mighty fleets reduced to a fraction of their former strength, and the Imperium's very sovereignty was to be diminished, as the humans demanded a voice in the governance of the Imperium's member worlds. It was a bitter pill for the proud Imperial rulers to swallow, but they knew that they had no choice. The Galactic Empire, for the first time in its storied history, had been forced to bend the knee to an outside power. The age of Imperium's unchallenged dominance had come to an end, ushering in a new era of interstellar politics and cooperation. The galaxy would never be the same again.